Sound like this. Meow. Then I can hear myself talk. So I guess the microphone's working, huh? Yay. Oh, someone still has audio on. So we are done doing you certify in class. And then you don't need to talk. We're good. So I'm going to put a gag on you. All right. This is kind of like the day 1, day 2, day 3 stuff. There's going to be an old video, but we're going to do a new one. Can you turn off your audio, please? Can you hear me talking? Then that's a bad thought. Wendy's holding the class back again. Everybody watching the video. It's a breezy day. She's cutting cheese. You got it? Okay. All right, so I don't even know what's on my example doc anymore here, but just like all our other ones, we have our screenshots and stuff. Now, this is not for this class. This was just an example of the format. We're using the same format we've been using in the Windows Fundamental class. This was just taking, the example from when we did John Doe, Jane Doe previously. But again, we're gonna want this is gonna be Windows Administration Fundamentals on the top right here, not OS Fundamentals, your name, date, and assignment. And then your notes, like you're going to be doing right now, you can put your notes right there. And then anything else you need to add to the screenshot for this. So today you're not doing it with me. So if I see people doing it with me, I'm just going to turn your computer off on you. And we're going to go over it. And then you can go back, you're going to submit your notes and then do it. So that way the video is not taking forever because the server's taking forever. So I'm going to go backward on here. So the point of everything we're going to try to cover with me is your exam. I think I'm in the wrong class right now. That's probably why it was that one. Why is I in this class? They look the same to me. Come here. It's highlighted. There we go. Maybe that's why. Maybe I did it in the wrong class when I made the Zoom meeting. I probably did. That's okay. We'll grab the video from it and then throw it over here. All right. There we go. So we've kind of done some of this already. So we're going to do the you need it, go get it. It says ISO. You guys have already done that. I have an example right here. So what you guys are going to do to turn in for this is you're just going to fill in your information on the top like I have right here. If you don't have that, if it doesn't look like this and you don't name it right, I'm just going to give you a 0 until you send it back correctly. For this one, all I want you to do is put the website where you got the evaluation, the ISO from. In our case, it's the 2022, right? And fill in your information, but don't submit it. You already have your ISO. You've already done all this. This is just proof you know where to go to get it, or if you forget later, you know where to go. So that's what you're going to turn in for that assignment. Again, you probably can't click on it if you haven't done everything, because it's not going to unlock until you've finished your U-Certified stuff. But that's it. It's just those two things coming down here. We're going to cover it. Right here is just showing. Why isn't this scrolling? There we go. So this screenshot right here is just showing that you downloaded the ISO, and it's showing the ISO file folder, the file name, because when you download it, they have those insanely long file names on them. So I can't come over to my downloads here really quick. I'm not in my virtual machine, but you remember when you download it, it's got like that really long version name instead of what you actually downloaded. It doesn't even say that it's server 2022. There's just like 21 H1 H2 with a bunch of numbers on it. So it's just you filling out the information, and then the actual file you downloaded, a screenshot of that. That's the only thing that's required for submitting that. Under notes, I just had here, step 1, go to this web page and download the ISO, right? So that's all that one is. We've already done that. It's kind of self-explanatory. Actually fill in your information, because I'm looking for your information, but you don't have to submit and give it to Microsoft. It's just that you did that. Let me go back one. Guess I could have just hit next. Dang. Let me know if you can see it or if you can't see it, because. All right. Hyper-V say what? This is also one that we've already covered. So remember when we did a dynamic memory? So we're going to start building our systems today. But when we do our dynamic memory, we need to make sure that this right here doesn't have that big, massive number of RAM. So by default, it's going to give you as much RAM as possible as it can hand out. And your system doesn't actually have that. So if you do that, there's a likely chance, especially when we're running with a server, that it will try to give that system more RAM than it can actually have, and it'll crash both systems. So Yvonne is very anal about that set in there. So let's go set up really quick, because it will start here. This is where our DC1, DC2 are going to start to come into play. And then on that one, again, Windows Server Administration Fundamentals, your name, the date, the name of the assignment right here. When you're naming the document, your first, last name, dash the assignment name. If that's not on your assignments when you turn them in, if this isn't on the assignments when you turn them in, you should know better by now. And I'm just going to send a 0 and tell you, hey, fix it, send it back, and I'll give you your 100%. Now I think I can just go to the next. Yeah, next one. Let's just get to the point where I can start making stuff in front of people. Checklist the IT, but all right, I'll have to make it. So let's get started. So we're gonna make, well, I'm gonna make the first one, deploying it off of the parent image that we created, and I'm gonna start off with the GUI one. So I guess I'll let you guys do this part with me. And then when I start like installing roles and features and stuff, I'll ask you guys to wait until I'm done, because this part shouldn't affect all of us. Why is it saying set up professional audio and audio settings? Go away. All right. So for me, I'm gonna make this full screen. Let me know if it's still showing up on your guys' end over there. Mouse over there. There we go. And then one more. All right, is that still showing up on share screen? Cool. So previously we set up our ISOs, we made our parent images and everything. There is not an assignment for doing that for this class. We just pre-did it to make this easier on us. So we're gonna be doing DC1, DC2. I believe he already has a DC1 or did have a DC1 and DC2, right? The reason for that is we're gonna use the rule 1 equals none and 2 equal 1. Which means one domain controller, if that goes down, it means you have 0. So for redundancy, you need a bare minimum of 2 domain controllers. One of those domain controllers has to be on a physical machine, not in a virtual machine. In our case, for practice purposes, they're both gonna be virtual. But in real world practices, you want that one of them on a real machine and then the other one could be in a virtual machine. That being and on a different computer, because you want to be able to take one down for updates without taking down your network. That's also why we have your primary DNS and secondary DNS, because you're going to have them pointing to at least 2 active directories that have DNS on them. So when one's done, it still knows how to authenticate and log you into the computer on the other one. Because you don't want to update both at the same time, because if you pull down your network, we got to think not in like our school practices, but in massive corporate practices where if you take down the network, you got to think of everybody's salary, hourly pay, and them sitting there not doing work. You're costing the company that many millions of dollars per minute, per hour, per second, when people aren't actually doing their job, but they're still getting paid for it. You know what I mean? So I'm going to make a DC1 and DC2 really quick, and I'm going to use those parent images that we previously created. So I'm just going to call my first one DC1, not exclamation point, but DC1. We always use generation 2. And I'm going to do 4096 because it's just a good round number, and freaking number lock. Where is number lock on this keyboard? There it is. I'm using my wireless keyboard. I am going to put on dynamic memory for this, because we don't need it using resources if it doesn't need it at that time. And that memory we put in there, if we forgot, this is our startup memory. So think of that like the starter for your car. Your car needs a big oomph to get that engine started before it can flip over to the battery and the alternator and keep itself running. So that's what that is. It's the initial setup for getting everything put together. It's going to try to give this memory right here, this amount of RAM, if we don't go and fix it, and we don't have that much RAM. So, and I think you can see me on your screen, right? All right, cool. Is this working better like this, or because I know the projector is kind of hard to look on the wall and it's always blurry and stuff. Okay, and I'm pretty sure I did this in the wrong classroom, so I'll try to grab the link and download it and put it in the right classroom for us. So I got that dynamic memory checked. Now, in this case, we do want our network on also. We are going to later, we're going to make a virtual switch that's private, and we're going to take our machines off because we're all going to be using the same IP addresses. And I don't want you guys actually being on my network when you have DNS, when you have DHCP on, because you can affect this network and take it down. You will literally be the rogue DNS or the rogue DHCP, and that could cause us problems. So later on, we're going to do the switch it up, and that's where we're going to move from our public switch, is what this one is right now, to a private one or an internal. And we'll go over what those are in a second. You guys kind of briefly covered this in the Windows 10, but we didn't really move around with the private and public and all that. We are definitely going to go into it in this course. This is just what it's going to name it. I'm just going to leave everything default. So we really probably only need like 40 gigabytes, but since these are auto expanding only when we need them, I'm just going to leave it as is. Actually, never mind. Shut up. I will shut up. We're using our parent images, right? We're making childs. So we need to make children. So that's not going to work. So X-nay on what I just said. Yep. Attach a disk later. And then we can just hit finish really quick. And mine said it's angry. Why? Because I probably have a disk sitting and it's got that name. Or Mr. on the far right-hand side. Why is that not working for me?
Formatted your
Yep.
I'm trying to put it in the past that word made there, but not there.
Yep. So the directory does not exist that it's looking for. How can I fix that? Well, I can do that really easy. I'm gonna hit cancel really quick on this, just because I'm gonna go through that really quick again. So over here on Hyper-V Manager, if you're having that, this is actually your Hyper-V server right here. So we're gonna right click on that and go to Hyper-V settings. So right now it has its default storage locations and those old ones before that we actually formatted that drive and killed those locations. So all we really got to do here is I'm just going to hit browse. I'm on virtual hard disk default storage. I'm just going to click on the VM, V drive, and just select it. And then on virtual machines, that's just where it's going to start the hard disk. Then the virtual machines, the data and everything, I'm just going to do the same thing. I'm going to click on that V drive and hit select. And because you see it's blue here, it hasn't actually applied it yet. So I'm going to come over here and hit apply. And now if I go in there and do it, I don't have to worry about that error message anymore. Then if I have a problem, it's probably because it's already there with that name and I need to go there and either change the name or delete the old one. Coming through here, we also have enhanced session right here. It says use if available. Sometimes it's not turned on right here. So if it's not turned on right here, it won't let you have that enhanced session. And you guys have all seen when like you connect and it says you're logging in, then it says, oh, connect, and it has your screen settings, like where you can change the actual screen size. That's the enhanced session connecting, and that's actually using remote desktop protocol to do that. So you guys on Windows 10, you had a little exercise where it had a purpose mess up in it where it says, oh, Jane Doe or John Doe doesn't have remote desktop permissions. And you had to go and turn off the enhanced session so they can actually log into those systems. That's that setting right there that was causing it. You can make them a member of remote desktop, or they shouldn't have it anyways, because if they were just regular users, you can make them an admin and then they would be able to do it. And we'll go more into those permissions later. So now that I've made that change, I can go through there, and what I just did, I'm just going to blow through this really quick because I never actually applied it. DC1, next generation 2, 4096, use dynamic memory. And I'm going to use the Intel one, which is our external. And I'm going to attach a virtual hard disk later. Now I have my DC1. So I'm going to go into my settings on DC1. So I'm just going to click on it. I can click over here on settings. I could click on action right here and go to settings, or I can just right click it and go to settings right here. 3 places, same thing. Later on, you're going to start using right here. See how there's this drop down box right here? When we have multiple machines, we don't have to close this out and then go to each individual settings. If we go this direction, we can just pick the machine right here and modify it from right here with the drop down. If we go from the actual connection window and do this, it won't give us that option. It will still let us modify this, and I'll show that in a second here. So the first thing I know, and this is Yvonne's biggest pet peeve, the memory, right, Wendy? Yeah. Right here. So our rule is we're just going to use our startup memory for our maximum RAM. So we're going to do the 4096, which is 4 gigs. We can always change this later. This is just for right now. I'm going to hit apply. Now, these tend to run better if we give it 2 processors. So we're going to give it 2 processors right here. And I'm going to hit apply. Now, we have no hard drive. We have no DVD. So if later on we need to, if we need to access an ISO later for purposes like WASUS or WDS or something, we will have to attach a DVD drive later. I'm not going to do it now. Right now, I'm just going to attach a hard drive, and I'm going to make that child of that parent that we made earlier. So I'm going to click on new after I added the hard drive, and I did that under SCSI. I didn't add another SCSI controller. I'm just clicking on that SCSI controller and then going to the right and doing add a hard drive. So I'm going to hit next because that's just the blah, blah, blah screen. And our main thing is differencing. Differencing is the one that says parent-child relationship right here. So that's the one we should be using. And then here, I'm just going to call it DC1 because that's why I named the machine, but it's not going to auto name it right here. And you see right here, it's automatically doing it on V drive. So I don't have to worry about it saving it in a directory that doesn't exist. And right here, it wants me to pick the parent. In my head, I think it should have me pick the parent first and then name the hard drive. In my head, that sounds like the proper order of things, but it's not. Everything seems a little bit backwards how Microsoft has it set up. So I'm just going to go browse, and I have my parent GUI right here. And I think my core one's right here if I'm doing core. Yeah, my core one's right there for later. And I'm going to hit open on that, and then next, and then finish. So what do I need to do after that? Does anyone remember? Besides hitting apply, now what do I have to do to boot off of that? Firmware, right. So we can go to the firmware. Now, by default, it has a network adapter, so it'll try to PXE boot. So I saw a lot of you booting in the PXE boot and stuff, and you actually went all the way into that. And then it asked you for a username and password. You guys are like, WTF, mate? Why is it asking me for a password? That's because you did the network boot. I don't think I've done that with you guys yet. You are going to set up your own PXE boot with your WDS server later, so you can actually do this at home. What I do with that at home is when I'm working on people's computers, I have it all set up with every version of Windows, and I can actually take somebody's computer, I can capture it, I can back it up, and then I can completely wipe it and do a clean install right from my network and walk away from it and charge them 4 hours worth of work. So right here, you'll see network adapter is pre-selected. I always tend to click on hard drive and then move up. But since it's already on network adapter, this goes both directions. I can just click move down and now hard drive is number one, right? So depends how little things you want to do to try to save you minute milliseconds of time. But after that, we should be good to go, right, guys? I got apply. I'm always apply and then okay, not okay and then apply, because sometimes okay doesn't apply. Right, Wendy? Was that confusing? So now that I got that, I can just click. I'm going to connect first and then turn it on. Now, if we were booting from an ISO, that would be a problem if we didn't do that, because it would probably go to that push any key to boot before it showed it to you. Then you'd have to come up to action and then do reset and then push any key to boot and install off of it. But if my image was created correctly, this should be just already installed and ready to go. And this is where super fast server comes into play here. And I'll take the view, full screen mode. Yeah. And I'll take this video for this and edit it and cut out all this wait time in between. This shouldn't take too long to boot in, since we did the parent image way instead of doing it the ISO way. Right now, we're not saving space, but now when we make DC2, now we save 17 gigs of space. And then that adds up when we have 2, 3, 4. It's a multiple of savings, right? It's like Costco. And then this way you can go back and watch the video and take notes again. Because I know I move a little bit fast, but we only have 4 hours to get through this. Okay, who remembers what this screen is called right here? When you did your system prep generalized, it was what the drop down box called this. Yes, out of box experience, or OOBE is what they call it. Usually they abbreviate it. So this is where you get, when you do your first install and you put you're installing off the ISO, these are those same questions that asks you when you first do it, right? So let's hit next, and then it should just ask me for administrator password. You must change the admin password. Or it's gonna say unknown error message and middle fingers in the air, and yeah, we're gonna have to deep fry that bird. There we go. You are now signing up for Space Force. It's better than the Chair Force because, yeah, you don't even have to worry about your weight in space once you get there. Server 123 at exclamation point. We're using this. We always use this unless told otherwise. It says it doesn't match. Why don't you like me, computer? Do I really type that bad? Don't answer that. This is why I cut and paste. So right now we're just getting our base systems ready to go so that we can do like an unlimited amount of deployments. So we're getting our very first one set up. This is actually going to be our domain controller 1, which is also going to be our master FSMO role computer. What that means is everything else replicates off of this computer that we're making. So if something goes wrong with this computer later, and like it's a complete hardware failure and we have to replace it, we actually have to run some scripts to make our DC2 seize, pretty much steal those roles and continue where it left off to have the minimum amount of loss. So this right here that pops up, you guys have seen a few times, this is actually the enhanced session. So when I hit connect, it's going to disconnect me and then reconnect. And now it'll be connected with a remote desktop connection. The other one was kind of like a VNC or more of a like KVM, like a keyboard video mouse connection to it, where this one's a remote desktop connection to it. And at some point I can get back in here. Go back to full screen, and it should be full screen. If not, I'm gonna have this itty bitty little box in the middle. I will be.
I'm just trying to keep up with my notes. Sorry.
Don't need to be sorry. It's a good question. So now I got to log in with that password. Since I couldn't type it right 2 times, I probably won't type it right here either. All right, I should go buy a lottery ticket. So when this comes on in my head, this is my very first time turning it on. I'm setting this up. I'm looking for specific things right now. First thing, I need to go right-hand corner. Am I activated? If I'm not activated, I'm going to have problems later right off the bat. If I'm not activated, my network might not be working. So I also want to check and make sure, hey, is that network, does it say I have internet or not on the bottom right-hand corner? Then I also want to make sure my time is correct. If my time is not correct, I will have issues updating. I'll have issues doing backups. It's just going to cause a whole bunch of problems. The number one thing on anything with computers is time. Time is your most important thing. Everything's based on a clock rate. Everything goes down to that little CMOS chip and that CMOS battery. Even though 2 computers on the left side of our room, I ripped those batteries out of it, and then they started working properly. So figure that one out. So let me Control Alt out of this. Now I'm gonna try to pull this up in front. So we're gonna do checklist to IT by, which there is no examples in here because people would just take it, copy it, and submit it. Nope, you got to watch the video. You got to do it with me. So many different virtual machines I'm in right now. It's still loading. I'm gonna see because it's acting kind of weird in that bottom right hand corner right here. I think I can go to display settings and change the display and make this actual full screen. Doesn't that kind of look like that framework PC logo? I wonder where they got theirs from. Oh, so it says tech house. So if that pops up, hit yes. That just turns on your file discovery and lets you know that you're on a private network. So. Oh yeah, it's not gonna let me adjust the resolution in this. Okay, so it's pretty much fixed where it is. Is that good enough? Can you guys see that? Okay. And then up here, if you undo this pin, it'll make this bar disappear on you. So. I'll just leave there so you can see where I am at all times. So a lot of times you'll be on the wrong machine. Like, are you on the right machine? Like, yeah. And then I look at the top, it's like, are you sure? Because you're on DC2 and you're supposed to be on DC1. Not a problem right now because most of us don't have one. Hmm? Oh yeah, you're doing stuff on the wrong. In Yvonne's class, I made it so everything was in high contrast mode on his labs, so it looked completely different, and people still were on their own computer.
Yeah, I think I did that once. Because these people below bottom, it's like, oh, wait, not the very first one.
Yeah, the biggest mistake you'll do in doing this stuff is you'll be overthinking stuff. You'll be so concentrated on what you're supposed to be doing, you forget where you are. So, and then the most common things that are going to cause you problems is just like in the command prompt earlier, space, syntax, spelling, location. Those are all things if you're not spelling it right, if you got spaces in the wrong places.
Pretty sensitive.
Yep. You're just in the wrong location. You mean you're supposed to be in PowerShell, but you're in command prompt. You're on the wrong computer. So all that stuff's the main 4 reasons why something's probably not working. So as this is turning on, I'm going to close that. We're not using that thing. That thing's so stupid. So of course, this is by the numbers, right? It turns on. Number 1. Let's go look at number 1. I obviously know my time is wrong, right? Bottom right-hand corner. But everything we need to do is right here. So first thing I want to know is I'm still sharing this, right?
Yeah, that's the fear. So you're activated.
Let me Control Alt. What the heck's going on here? I just don't have my annotate tools from Zoom. I'm just trying to get those to show up and I can't see them. Does it not show up when it's like that? Yeah, they're hiding. Okay, I'll do it like this really quick. So, am I activated? Well,
Yes, sir.
right there, number 1, am I activated? It says activated. So yes. First one, am I activated? Second one, my time. Well, when I saw at the bottom, I knew my time was wrong. It says Pacific Standard Time. So that is not correct, right? So we're going to go into there and we're going to set that to Central Standard Time. I work from right to left because this is the stuff that'll mess it up first. And you see up here, I call it the Night Rider, where it's still loading up here. See this up here? You have to wait for that to finish.
The kit,
Yep. My number lock is freaking out. You see that? Like I just moved my mouse and it says number lock off. Number lock off. What the hell? I don't. I couldn't tell. It's a wireless Logitech. I actually got 2 wireless Logitechs sitting here. Did it register? It might actually be open behind it too. There it goes. So I'll go to change my time zone, not change date and time, change time zone. And we'll just take that down to Central US, Canada and hit OK. And then OK. You'll see it doesn't actually show it change here. This, you actually have to come up here and hit refresh. And then it updated it. So if you want this to update more, you can come up to manage and then server manager properties here. And that's starting to drive me nuts. Stop doing that. Is that this other keyboard trigger? Let me turn that off. So here, this is its refresh rate right here. See, it says every 10 minutes it's going to refresh. So that any changes you make in here on its own, it's only going to update it every 10 minutes. It's going to hit that refresh button on its own. You could say like every minute if it bothers you or not. Or if you don't want server manager to pop up when you first log in, we could click this checkbox here and it won't automatically open it. Since we're only gonna, when you set up a server, you're only gonna go in there about one time, set it up, and that's it. So it's not really an issue when you're using it as a server. On our host computer, which we also use server, we did click that just so that would stop popping up and annoying us. So it act like a regular, like a Windows 10 computer instead of a server. So I'm gonna set that just to 1, just so it auto does it. Now you will notice that when I have that, sometimes there'll be a red flag up here that just said fail to refresh. Sometimes this just doesn't refresh even when it's supposed to, and it's nothing important. It just says it didn't refresh. Just go up there, hit X, and then refresh it yourself if you want to make sure it's showing what you did. So our next one up here, number 3 on our checklist, when we get back to my annotate tools, draw, is we want to do our updates. So we know we previously took care of this. So when you're first setting up a computer, we want to make sure it's fully up to date if we're going to bring the server online, because there's probably a security patch every single day. We created our own image that should have all the updates up to yesterday, right? Or the day before yesterday. So when we hit that, there shouldn't be a million updates. Now, once we have our network officially set up, all this will be handled with group policies and WASUS. WASUS is going to handle updates on our network. What it's going to do is it's going to download the updates. We're going to approve them, and then it's going to push them out like round robin style to the groups that we wanted to push those updates to, so that you don't have 100,000 computers pulling updates from the internet all at one time and crashing your network, because that would be bad, right? There's so much things. Your job is to keep everybody else working, right? That's why you're probably the most important person. They're going to be buying you coffee, everything. Even if there's a ton of IT people, the IT person is the most valuable person at any industry, because no one else knows how to fix their stuff or change their password. So this says our updates were last installed 9/21/2021. So since I know this isn't going to take forever, I'm actually going to go run my updates. I'm going to come over here. Now in the old video, I probably have us disable this so it doesn't do it. But since I know we went in there, we pre-did it, we're going to do this textbook. So I'm going to click on check for updates just really quick, and it might have 1 or 2 virus scan updates. That's about it. So while that's doing that, let me mute this. Okay, so it says, I'm up to date. I don't have to restart or anything. So happy, joy, joys.
Let me go take a quick break.
Okay, well, I'm gonna finish this really quick. So we have we're activated, our time zone, we're up to date. So over here, when we have our IP address and everything, we'll set our IP right now. We're not gonna mess with that. On our checklist, we wanna make sure our remote desktop is turned on. Right now, it's disabled. So let me get a nice little sexy line right here. Pow, right there. So we want to click on that, and that number lock's driving me nuts. And I own fnumberlock.com, fnnumlock and fnnumberlock. I own them both for that reason. Stop it. So all you have to do is click this right here. Hey, look. I'm gonna recycle that arrow. Allow remote connection. And then you just hit apply. And always apply and then okay, not okay, and then apply because okay might not apply. Got it? And then you hit your refresh up here. And it should say that that's turned on. Now we also want remote management right here. Let me get my arrow again. I like my arrows. So this one right here, even though it says enabled, sometimes it's not actually enabled. So just always make it a habit to go there, check it, click on it. Sometimes that's not like actually checked. So I like to just do that really quick and just make sure. Because I've run into these bugs before and I've been hurt before. So I don't want to be hurt again. I can't afford Astroglide. So then our last one is we're going to name this. So for our purposes, we're going to name this DC1. Okay. So I'm going to go up here. I'm going to go to change and we can all use the same name. So I'm going to go. Now, if we're actually going to stay on the same network, this would be a bad thing, but we're not going to all stay on the same network. So I'm just going to call this DC1 just so I know, hey, this is my domain controller 1 when I see it on the network. I'm going to hit OK. It's going to tell me I need to restart. It just got mad because someone else has this out here, right? So it sees someone else with that same one. So if you're having that problem, let's just do DC1 dash your initials for now. I was planning on having us name it and then go flip us onto a private network. But for now, this will work too. Just DC1 dash SLS. Then when we're searching for it later, we can just search DC1. It'll pop up. Whatever your initials are here. Hopefully you don't have one of those names with a million names and this is beyond 15 characters. Why are you still mad at me? Oh, all right. So what did I just do wrong, guys? Right. I can't read. I'm special. All right. Let me do this in the right spot. I'll do the DC1 again and see if it gets mad at me. So have I mentioned I haven't slept since Saturday? There we go. Now, if I hit close, it's going to ask me to restart it. I'm going to say no. I'm going to say restart later. The reason why is because I'm going to shut it down instead of restart it. Now, let me get this back to, let me clear all this annotation stuff really quick. Go back to full screen. Exclusive mode. All right. The reason why I'm shutting it down because I know we're activated. I know our time zone set up and I know we're up to date on our Windows updates. So I don't need internet anymore. So after this, we're going to create our private switch or our internal switch. That way we're going to be off the public network out here. So future changes we do won't mess up other people and we can use the same IP addresses. So I'm just going to go down to my bottom left. I'm going to make sure I'm in my Hyper-V virtual machine and that this is actually my Hyper-V virtual machine that I'm shutting down here. Now it's going to ask you, is this planned or unplanned? It's planned. I'm just going to just say planned, other planned. If you don't say that, it's going to ask you, why did you restart this when you come back into it? Because servers are not meant to be turned off. They're not meant to be restarted. They're supposed to be constantly on, never turned off. Because if they're not on, they're not providing a service anymore. Poof. So on my other computer right here, the one that we're using for our host, you'll see it says Windows 2019 data center evaluation, Windows license valid for 142 days. That's one of the spots you can check to see if you're activated when your system first turns on. If you see if that says evaluation expired, you know there's probably something wrong with your network. Later, we will find something wrong with our network. What tends to happen after you put an Active Directory domain controller on a server, when you restart it in Hyper-V and it turns on, for some reason, it doesn't boot that network card properly. And it'll usually say unknown network instead of yourdomain.com or yourdomain.local. And you have to go to that network adapter, disable, re-enable it, and it magically starts working properly. So but it seems to only happen on something that has an Active Directory domain controller installed on it, which is annoying. Could you imagine having your entire data center have a blackout turn on and everything's running on virtual machines and you have to go to every single one of those and reset their net card manually because none of them are working, and you can't remote in because their net card is not working, right? All right, so I'm just connected to that normally. So does anyone need to take the break right now?
Yeah, I want to move the blanket and bring it in.
Okay, go take a break. I'm going to mute my microphone and All right. What the heck? Right as I click in it, it goes to sleep on me. That's the story of my life. All right. Exclusive modes. Go back in here. Number lock. Shut up. All right. So we're gonna create a virtual switch for this now that's private. So let's go to our virtual switch manager, which is right here. Is the screen share still working? So when we create new virtual switches, we're going to the virtual switch manager. That's right here. It says virtual switch manager. And by default, it's going to be on new virtual network switch. And then why did that just, what the, get out of there. I just got tools in front of me right now. And it's in the way. Move, move.
What is this sign called?
There we go. One we're moving to is gonna be Who Am I? We're not on it yet though. I'm gonna minimize that. There we go. So right now we're on this one right now, which is an external virtual switch, but it's not called external. But you can go down here. It's the one that made it when we actually installed Hyper-V on the server external, and it's actually naming it what our actual network controller card is right here, our NIC card. So we already have an external one. So we're going to create a private one. Now, what's the difference between internal and private? Does anyone know? Is that a no? Is that a yes? Is that a no? Is that a yes? Words are difficult. Yeah, so the internal one has a private connection to the host itself. So if I wanted to ping my virtual machine from my host, I would be able to do it, but I'd still need to set up the same network protocols on the virtual NIC that's on my host. So I can talk to my virtual network that stuff's on. In private, our host cannot talk to it at all. Only the virtual machines that are on that private network can talk to each other on that private network. So this is kind of a way where we can set up like a poor man's DMZ, where the host computer can have the internet coming in, and then it can use NAT and redirect it to that private network and give internet to that private network through the internal. And inside the internal, then we can actually, well, I was saying private, our host one can give internet to our virtual machines on the internal network, and then another machine in there can actually direct that internet to another machine on their private network, since it could be on both. But our host computer is not capable of being on the private network, but it is on the internal and external networks. So if we're trying to keep stuff kind of quarantined and off our main network, and we're just trying stuff out and we don't want to take down our network or cause problems, these are our three options that we have right here. So let's do internal today. Let's do an internal one. So we'll do create a virtual switch. We'll do internal, and let's just call it internal virtual switch. If you don't know how to spell it, it's right there where the checkbox is. I'll still spell it wrong though. So internal virtual switch, that way we know it's internal, and it even says underneath here, internal only. And we'll go through this whole routine, hit apply, okay, not okay, then apply, because okay might not apply. Got it? Good. So now we'll have this option for our virtual switches in our actual virtual machines, but it's not on it right now. It's still on the Intel external virtual switch because we haven't changed it. We just created something, but we haven't used it on anything yet. So I'm going to hit okay. And now I can go to my settings on DC1. And I'm going to go to my network adapter right here. And you see over here where it says virtual switch. I'm just going to click here on the drop down box and put it on internal virtual switch. Self-explanatory. It's our internal one. Now, what you do not ever want to do is change the virtual switch when your computer is running. You risk the chance of permanently breaking the virtual NIC card in the virtual machine, and you'll end up having a static IP and a 169 IP address on DHCP, if you do that, it will get mad at you. And then you will never be able to get it away. And the best recourse is just to delete the machine and start over. Because it will take you more time to try to fix that and realize you can't fix it instead of just starting over. Do not change your virtual switch when your machine is running. Always make sure your machine is off. The state is off. So I'm in the blue. So again, apply okay, not okay, and apply because okay doesn't apply. All right. Am I getting faster on that? So we're going to do who am I? Who am I is where we're going to find what information we need to know on what my computer is. What's my computer name? Well, who am I on the network? What's going on? So that's the next one we're going to do. Let me alt tab over here. So who am I is this one right here. So we're going to knock through these really quick. So we're going to go through this. There's an example of this one in the Canvas. So you should be good to go on that. Should be, doesn't mean you are, but should be. Am I losing anybody yet besides Wendy? I just went to Virtual Switch Manager. And then it should already be on new virtual switch. And then you click on which one, internal, external, private, and give it the name. And then you just hit create, and that's it. Then you go to your actual Windows computer. Well, your to the settings on your DC1 that you created. And you'll go over to the network adapter right there and go to that to the virtual switch on the right here. And you can just do the drop box to the one you created. Probably had it open before you did it. So if you have this open, before you go make sure this here, you'll have to do that refresh right there. Or else it can have all your old stuff. Okay, on his, it wasn't showing it right here because this right here was probably open before he went and made the new switch. Might have been open in the background or something. So if you do have that issue, there's a refresh button right here. So just click that refresh, it'll refresh everything and update it to what the settings should be right now. That option is not on there if you're connected to it and go into it. So if I go, now that I just closed it, my machine keeps kicking me out of full screen. There we go. So let me go back into here. So if I double click on this, which is connecting to it, and if I go up to file settings, you'll see that refresh button is not an option up here. Nor is that drop down box where I can switch to different machines. I don't know why they have two different settings managers here when they could just have the one that gives me the options to flip through everything, but they don't. So if you had this one open prior, just close it, reopen it, and it should be there. If not, let me know and I'll come and look at it. So with that said, now we'll be on an internal network. Should I expect to have internet when I turn this on? What should I expect to have? No, what should I have? What should my network say? If I did an IP config, what should I have? He's thinking. He's gonna be a dirty man, like a peeping Tom or something. Yeah, a peep. That's why I said a peeping Tom. Really bad hints, right?
I didn't, it went over my head.
Right.
But I knew what it was.
So we're gonna be on a private network, which means it's clean, or well, it's internal. I'm gonna keep private internal. I'm gonna use them interchangeable because we're not on our external network. Really, our host can see it. That's about it. So there's no DHCP server. There's no DNS server. There's nothing on it right now. So it has DHCP set on our network card right now. So when we log in, it's going to say no internet and it's going to give itself a PIPA because nothing else gave it an IP address. So we are expecting to not have internet. So we shouldn't be, oh, I don't have internet. What's wrong with it? Well, computers don't just have internet just because they exist. So. We're just about in there. GP service. Server 1, 2, 3, add exclamation point. Yay. Time's flying though already, isn't it? Crazy.
You just said, oh, it's only 10:30. Oh, never mind. I'm like losing my hearing.
There's a reason why I was only giving you guys 2 days in class for you certify. Well, 2 full days. Now we gotta wait for it to turn on. Hey, look, the time's right. Yay. I wonder if this microphone's picking up that server hissing behind me. I like my Yeti X better than this one. It has much better filtration. I could have like a fan blowing above me and you won't hear it. But it's got all the processing stuff built into the mic, where this one's all software on the computer. All right. Well, since my server manager hasn't popped up yet, I'm gonna wait this to fully load on me. So this one's called Who Am I? Because I want to know information about my computer. Who am I logged into the computer? Because I might need that. Maybe I'm in the wrong location. I need to make sure I'm in the right place, right? So in a corporate environment, you probably just remote into a computer and you probably want to, hey, did I just remote into the right computer? So, and you'll see in my bottom right-hand corner right here, it says, I don't have internet. Unidentified network, no internet access. We expect that though, right? When this turns on, it should have our name. Now, if you watch the old video that's on those, it's going to be one that I did when we were at home, when we were doing COVID at home. So that one's actually going to have different information that I had people type to name their computer. We don't have that problem here because we're all in the same building. All right, so I'm going to go back to 1, configure this local server, because I'm going to make sure all my stuff is still there. And this is actually one of our first screenshots right here. Who am I? Well, the information I have right here. Computer name, DC1. Am I a member of a domain or a work group? Well, right now I'm a work group. It's got Microsoft Defender on, remote management on, desktop. Nick Teeman is not on. Nick Teeman is kind of like RAID for network cards. You can use a bunch of network cards and have them team up as one. You can round robin them. You can have it so if one fails, it'll flip over to another one, so that it keeps its uptime and it's not burning that one out. We have our Ethernet. This is like, who am I on the network? If I click on here, it's going to take me to my network settings. Eventually, when Knight Rider is over. We're on reruns right now. So right now it says unidentified network. That's to be expected. We have nothing on this network, right? Now, later on, when we know that should say like contoso.com or mydomain.local, if it's supposed to say that and it doesn't say it, at this point, we'd probably right click on this and say, hey, disable, enable. So you can right click into it, or if you click on them, it gives you options up here also. It says disable this network adapter and then enable. we shouldn't have any problems right now because A, we don't have a domain controller on here yet, and we don't expect anything here on the first place. Now, if I right click, I can go to status, and status is kind of like a poor man's IP config, and it says no network access, no network access, IPv6 enable. If I go to details, here's my APIPA right here, right? I got a APIPA. It put me on a class B subnet mask. That's this 255.255. You guys remember what those 255s are? Yes, I just said it's a class B, but what do these actually represent? So those are the values of the 8 bits per octet, right? So the maximum number, it's actually 256, but the 6th one actually tells you that it's IP. So 255 means that anything that has a number right here is locked, means I cannot change it. So my network is 169.254. Now these other numbers here to the right that have 00 means those are hosts. Those are numbers that are actually accessible and usable by any computer on this network right here. So if I'm looking at your computer and yours says 169.253, you're on a different network than me and I can't see you. So this is one spot where we can look, hey, am I on the right network? So, because I'll give you guys like 10.0.0.1, 10.0.0.2, and maybe you look in there and it says you're on 192.168.0.1. Well, there's something not right if you don't see the right numbers there. But all these I'll show you later. You have 8 bits, each bit has a value, and they're added from left to right to whatever their value is equals that right there. So all it really is just how many bits are turned on to make those values there from left to right. And I'll show you the easy way. I think you guys probably did Sunny tables with Richard, right? So now you're actually going to see this stuff be applied. So try to make it make sense to you. As we go down here, we don't have a gateway because we don't have anything on our network. We don't have a DNS server because we don't have anything on our network. WINS is old school, so we'll probably never have a WINS server on our network. That's like pre-DNS, pre-modern networking here. NetBIOS, TCP, IP. So let me grab this over here. So we do have NetBIOS over TCP IP enabled. It says yes. Now, then we also have over here, see, if I can't see something, there's usually something at the top you can drag over to see it. So the rest of this stuff is pretty much our APIPA for IPv6, right? FE80. That's APIPA. This colon with a space between it and colon means that's all zeros, right? So you won't have to memorize IPv6 stuff because there's really zero reason to use IPv6 on a local network. And in fact, most of the times on a Windows network that's ran on server, like Windows Server, it causes problems. The only reason why you would have used IPv6 on a local network is if you were using home groups on Windows 10. But what doesn't exist anymore? They got rid of home groups in 1802 or 1502 or something. Home groups don't exist anymore on Windows 10. They got rid of it. People did an update and they pretty much said, hey, if you had it set up, okay, but you can't change it anymore and you can't make new ones. Home groups actually used IPv6 and it kind of treated that like a separate network on your home network, and everything else ran through IPv4. But besides that, on your home network, you're probably never going to use IPv6 because the only reason why we were using IPv6 is because we ran out of IP addresses on the internet, right? Do you want to memorize an octet or do you want to memorize IPv6 addresses to address stuff on your home networks or on a corporation network that's internal? I don't think I'd ever want to mess with IPv6 on an internal network if I don't have to, So this is some of the who am I stuff right here. So this is also, you can use this for a screenshot. This is one thing that, hey, this is who I am on the network. Now, the other way to do that is in our command prompt, right? So, all right, I'm going to stop going that way. I'm going to use my keyboard if it works in here. So if I hit the Windows button and then R, it should open up run menu, right? I should be able just to type CMD right here and hit enter. This will pull up my command prompt. I could also just type PowerShell and it would have opened up PowerShell too. And there's PowerShell. I like PowerShell better because at least it color codes stuff and it gives you red error messages. So I'm going to leave the PowerShell one open. Now you can also hold control and scroll up and down and make this bigger. So if it's too small or too big, you can adjust it just like you can zooming in on a web browser. So I'm going to do what I usually do. I'm going to do CLS on here. Actually, let me do, that wasn't an L. All right. I'll do CD / first and then CLS. This keyboard's a little bit weird. Stuff's in different locations. All right. And I'll zoom in. So one of the major commands you learned in A+, and I made you use it in the Windows 10 class, right? ipconfig, right? And that gives us, it tells us, hey, subnet mask and our IPv4, 169.254.196.48. And also has our link local IPv6. So link local IPv6. What's our link local for IPv4? Our local loopback, I mean. Yes. So we would use that if we're like testing ourselves, looking at ourselves. If we don't want to go through our network card to access our network stuff that's on ourselves, because why waste resources? Why make that switch do work when I can just talk to myself? I'm used to it. I don't need you for conversation. I have multiple personalities. No? All right. So say I want more information here. What do I need to type? I can hit up arrow. I'm back to my IP config. What? / what? It did not hit my L's. So because I didn't do it, it shows me all of my switches that I can use it. So I can use / to give me help, like where are right now, the help message / all like he just said, display full configuration information. Then we actually have stuff that it can do. We can release our IP. This is only if we're actually doing DHCP though. So if we have DHCP, we can release our IP address and then ask for a new one. We can do /renew to renew an IP address to get it back. So when we release, we're going to actually have to get a new one. So release will just drop it and we won't have anything. Then we would use the /renew command, this one right here, to get an IP address again. And over here it says renews the IP address from the specific adapter. What's weird is this will glitch and it'll do it for the 6 too. But you should have to use release IPv6 and release renew IPv6, with just putting a 6 at the end of it. One that we will use a lot is flush DNS. Your DNS might be pointing to the wrong IP address. Remember, all DNS does is translate words to numbers. That's all it's doing. Computers understand numbers and bits. We understand words and terminology, right? The computer doesn't. So we're kind of trying to fight dyslexia between the two of us. Sometimes it'll have like, your AOL.com or some local.com that you have rerouted to a computer on your local network. Its IP address changed, but it still has the old one and it points you in the wrong direction. So a lot of times we'll just have to do flush DNS and then magically it works. So a lot of these other ones we're not going to go over. They're more advanced, but these are the main tools we will be using right here, are these first ones right here. So let me do what he said in the up arrow in here. I'm too zoomed in. There we go. So I should have did the 2 L's and I missed them. So there we go. So this is actually going to give me all the details. So it says DC1, it says my node type is hybrid, IP routing enabled, says no. Wins proxy enabled, no. Connection specific DNS suffix, that's if our computer had a name on the network, or say our network had like something.com. Once we domain join, it'll be like dc1-contoso.local will be our actual computer name on the network if we're domain joined. So this is all our extra stuff. Does anyone know how to print to a file? I might be typing this wrong, but I just believe it's caret, and then you can type, well, I don't want to do txt, I want to do, is it? txt. There we go. That should actually, everything it just sent to me, it will actually make a text file and send that to a text file. So no response is the best response when you do a command. Usually PowerShell will only tell you if you did something wrong. Now that I did that, I can actually type notepad space, and I'll just start typing info and hit tab. It should see it. If not, it's gonna get mad at me. There it is. And hit enter. And look, it put all of that in a note on a in text document for me, so I can go through there, or maybe I need to email that to someone. So this is actually one of the screenshots I have too, but this is who am I, right? This is a who am I with the IP config. Any command that you run in PowerShell or command prompt, and you want to send that to a text file, you can do that. Now we can use that print command a little bit more in depth later, where later on we can use it and say, hey, add to this text file, don't overwrite it. So I can actually start creating my own log and have a script when I turn on my computer that I can reference every time, so I can see if something changed. I can go back into that log and see. It's kind of an easy way to write a script and do a poor man's log, right? But also, if you hate typing and doing stuff, this is a good way to get stuff, highlight it, and go put it in somewhere else and cut and paste it. Because I know this is actually typed right. This is what the computer told me it is, right? So right here is also another who am I screenshot that you will have. I'm going to close that really quick, and I'm going to CLS this. So what would be an ironic command for the who am I exercise? Nobody? How about who am I? That's my computer and who's logged into it. So maybe I want to sit down at someone's computer and I forgot to log into mine, or they're logged in and they don't have rights or something. Maybe they're not logged in with their account. Maybe they're not logged in into the domain. So that first part is my computer name. Now, if I was on the domain or ready domain, that would say the computer name dot the domain name, and then backslash who's logged into it. So that's also the perfect who am I command for the who am I exercise, right? So, and I believe that's all of them. Let me double check. I'm going to do Control Alt. We're recording right now, so if you say stuff, it's going to be recorded online for everyone to hear. So there's one that I did miss, guys. So let's go back in there really quick. I'm not perfect. There we go. So this other one's going to be a flashback to your Windows 10. So if we right click on our start menu over here, we can go type sys, hopefully. And we're just looking for system info. This is also a command you can type in PowerShell too and send it the stuff. Why aren't you? There we go. System information. So if you're talking with someone over the phone and you need to know their operating system version, their hardware profile, this right here will have all of that. So there is another way to get to this. Those of you who did A+, has any of you taken an A+ exam yet? I always want to say Sys32. My mind's going blank now. Why is my mind going blank? I remember it later. So system information actually has like your hardware, if you have conflict and sharing right here. The main thing is like if you're working with someone over the phone and they don't know jack about computers, you can get them to navigate here easy. And you can just tell them, hey, save this, send me the file, save the system information file, email it to me. Then you can look at it because this will have conflicts of sharing. It'll say if there's a conflict, it'll have it here, DMA, forced hardware, internet interrupt request, input, output. So everything in here, you can see their components, what kind of CD drive they have in here. I have none because this is a virtual machine. Yes. And there's one more, which is the one that has like the startup changes and all that. I always want to say Sys32. I know it's right. Not right. I know that's wrong, but it's just something. Oh, config. Sysconfig. Let's see. Nope, that's not right. I can't type it all. I'm gonna stop trying to. My mind is so blank. When I remember, I'll give it back to you guys later. No, I just need to get some sleep. Do you guys need a break? So that last one right there is probably the last screenshot for Who Am I to put in your notes for that. So the next one, let's see. I think the next one we're actually going to install Active Directory. So we're going to prep it to actually install an Active Directory on DC1, and then we could probably take a break right after that. So let me just double check that, make sure I'm on track here. Go to next. Yeah, Domania 2. So if you remember on Windows 10, we did Domania 1 where you joined the domain. So I call this one Domania 2 because now you are actually going to be domain. I could call this domain, but then people think I'm sexist. So Domania 2, like WrestleMania, we're actually going to create the domain side of that. Let's see what we're looking for on this example here. Piece of cake. So remember on the Who Am I, Server Manager tells us a lot of who we are, right? So if I can zoom in on here, that's as far as you zoom in. You suck. Come on. So right here it says am something.local. It shows that it's actually on a domain and it's on DC1. So the only way that could be a domain is if it is a domain. So we're going to actually create our domain, which is really easy to do. So right now, do you guys need a break or do you want to keep pushing through? All I hear is the voices in my head right now. You're good? Wendy, you want to take a break? Are you good?
I'm
The- the-
My computer was glitching on.
I had to step out for a moment, like, just like,
Okay,
actually,
so just keep pushing until you need to walk out. Yeah. Well, let me get out of this part now. Minimize that. So that's what we're on next. All right. Am I on the right computer? Yeah, I'm on the right computer. I'm gonna go into my server manager again because I closed it. So there's one very, very important thing about an Active Directory domain controller is it has to have a static IP address. We cannot change our computer name and we do not want to change our static IP address after we've made it a domain controller and promoted it to a domain controller. It will get mad at you, it will break, and the best thing to do after that would be just to completely redo it, because Active Directories actually in the back end are very fragile. So it's very easy to break them, especially in our environment here where we have random stuff go through because we're in a virtual environment with everybody doing something at the same time. So we've configured the local server. We have one last thing to do because we don't have a static IP, right? So I'm going to go to my network adapter now from the first option, configure the local server here. And I'm going to click on my Ethernet one right here where we just were previously. And I'm going to right click on this and go to properties. Now there's some PowerShell commands we can do, but I would have us do that later and probably do that on our core machine later to practice. But right now I'm going to show you, the quickest, straightforward way to do this. I'm going to go to properties and we're just go to the IP v4 settings on here. So Internet Protocol 4, version 4, and we're just going to go to properties on that. So right now it says obtain an IP address automatically. Wouldn't it be just nice if it just said, hey, DHCP is on? But they don't want to use proper terminology. So obtaining an IP address automatically means it's looking for DHCP to get an IP address. We don't have one. We're going to be one later, but we don't have one yet. So I like to use when I'm setting up a network for someone, I like to have these numbers actually mean something. So I always prefer to use a class A because it's unlimited for me, but these numbers can actually mean something for me. So the 10, we know we have to do that if we're going to use a class A. It has to be a 10. But the good thing about a 10 is we're only locking the very first number here to something we can't change. And we're on our own private network here, so it's not going to matter. Now, if say I had another location at a different site, maybe I'd have location 1, 2, 3, 4 for this next octet right here. So I know if I see that on my network or VPN into my network, I know that, hey, that's not even here. That computer is somewhere else. So say I had an Austin location, a Killeen location, I'd probably put right there location 1, 2, 3, and that's what that designator would be. For here, I'm just going to do 0 for now. And the next one, maybe at the building or a room. So maybe IT department would be 2, maybe MA over there would be 3. For me, I like to use these right here for what's the purpose, what's the job, what's the role. So for servers, I usually just put them on 10.0.0.1 for the very first one. For me, you can figure out whatever works for your scheme, whatever makes you remember what's what, but I recommend coming up with something and sticking to it. So like if I have like room 1, I could put over here. I know zeros are going to be servers, but then say I can designate, hey, all computers with 3.1 or end 10.0.3.xx are Yvonne's room. Or maybe .7s are all printers. So figuring out how you do it and documenting how you do it will make your job a lot easier in the future. So for our purposes, let's put 10.0.0.1. This is a DC1. So it also kind of helps if the name correlates to the IP address, because we're kind of setting up our own DNS translator in our head, right? So I know by looking at this, hey, my DC1 is 10.0.0.1. it's easy to remember. Now, if I had like 172.17.5.36, that's a lot more numbers for my head to try to process, right? Right now, it's 1 0 0 0 1, right? I kind of have a binary number there. Now, if I hit tab, it will automatically fill in my subnet mask, 255. That means I cannot change anything that's not on 10 is not in my network. So, and then 0 0 0, we have access to all those. That's why we can put this, we can say location, building or job type, and then where we're starting off with IP addresses for that. Now, our gateway, your gateway is where your internet is coming in from. Right now, we have nothing here. Most likely, we'd probably have pointing this to our router on our network, right? Or our NAT server, which we can create with a virtual machine later on one of these. We can create a NAT server. If we have time, maybe I'll give you something that's not Windows related and let you actually use pfSense, which is, it runs in virtual machines and it actually gives you full control over routing, NAT tables, IP, open VPN, all kinds of stuff you can run from that and actually control your entire network. So, because you guys will get to be able to play around and run into problems and, hey, what's a solution? I want you to be able to find solutions or try to find solutions. That's going to be the goal of our final. So for right now, I'm going to put myself as the default gateway. So later, if I do put a NAT on here or put another network card on this with internet, I'll have it and I'll be able to hand internet to someone else. So for now, I'm just going to put 10.0.0.1. Now, this computer is going to be a DNS, an Active Directory domain services. And a requirement of Active Directory domain services is it has to have a DNS server on it. So I am going to be my own DNS server here. So I could put 10.0.0.1 for my preferred one. But on what we talked about earlier, if you remember, what would be a better way for me to talk to myself and be a crazy person? What's that? PIPA means we're not getting an IP address. Was right after that. Like if I want to talk to myself, yes. So local loopback, I can put right there. That way I don't have to go through my NIC card and go through the switch and then back to myself to talk to myself. I don't need a mediator to talk to myself, right? I mean, maybe if I have a counselor or something, but we don't need that, right? So I'm gonna do 127.0.0.1. Now, if you're in Yvonne's class, he's gonna have you put the 10.0.0.1. But guess what? Once your computer restarts and what turns back on, if you go and look there, it will put 127.0.0.1 on its own. So there's really no point in doing that. Now, the alternative one, we're gonna have a DC2. So our rule is 2 domains equal 1. 1 is none and 2 is 1. So based on my IP address scheme, if I did 10.0.0.1 for this one, what am I probably going to use for DC2? Yep. It doesn't exist, but I'm planning my deployment and I know I'm going to use that. So it won't hurt me to put that here. I don't want to do validate settings because none of this stuff exists yet, right? I'd probably also want to write this down and document what I'm doing. And it might even be better when you're documenting stuff, instead of writing it, use that snippet tool, screenshot it, drop it in, because you might type something that you think you typed, but if you look at it, you might have typoed it. Did I? You're right. So then we can hit OK. Don't do validate though, because validate's it can't validate. We don't need that kind of attention. We don't need validation for everything we do, right? And I'm going to hit close. And now it says identifying, and none of that stuff's going to work yet because it doesn't exist. So it still says unidentified network. But now if I right click on here and go to status and go to details, all my settings should be there. Now, if you changed that network card when your machine was running, your virtual switch, you could possibly have a 10.0.0.1 and in a peeper right here. If you see that, you are screwed and start over.
Oh, no.
Don't try to troubleshoot it. Do not change that virtual switch when your machine is on. Because it's kind of like you ripping out a network card and plugging it into another PCI Express slot, but virtually. And it just doesn't work to fix. It just doesn't. It gets mad at you. So right now, this looks good. So what else could I do instead of right-clicking or clicking on details right there? I'm going to use the Windows button and R, and I'm going to go into my PowerShell. I'm going to do my IP config, right? And I should see those same numbers, and like our good man over here said, /all earlier, and that'll give us everything. Now, what if I want to make sure that I can talk to myself? What should I do? Exactly. So I can ping. Now I know my own IP address is 127.0.0.1 if I'm doing local loopback, and I should get a response to myself right there. I got a response. Now I can also do my 10.0.0.1, and I should get a response from that too. Now I will not get a response from .2. Why? Yeah, it doesn't exist. And again, as we're going through this and setting stuff up, and we have expectations. We should know what we should be getting. And that's why we're doing this, to say, hey, am I getting what I should be getting here? If not, I need to start troubleshooting here. I don't want to move all the way to installing and deploying a domain controller and then realize there's a communication error. I can't talk. So there's one more thing I need to do if I'm going to set up an Active Directory domain services. It says, Wendy, remember. I will help her really quick and go there. I'm going to minimize this. I don't need to close it. So before I set up Active Directory domain services, install it, and then promote my server, what should I probably do first to my network? No, what do I have to do to my network? Turn on what? That you just about said it. Network discovery and file sharing. Yeah, the easy way to do it is just to click on network right here, and it'll tell us.
Oh, yeah, I had that in my notes to enable that.
And then turn it on. If that's not turned on, this could cause problems later with communication. Now you want to say the no. So read it before you ask me, do I do yes or no? No, make the network that I'm connected to a private network. Network discovery and file sharing will be turned on for private networks such as those in home and workplaces. We're home or workplace, right? Yes, turn on network discovery and file sharing for all public networks. That doesn't sound very safe, does it? That means people can see your stuff if you're at Starbucks. Now, this is a server, so it's probably not an issue. It's not moving anywhere. So now I can see myself right there. I can also double click on it, and it should, yep, let me connect to it because it's me. There's nothing there. After we become a domain controller, there will be stuff there that's for the Active Directory to communicate with everybody. So with that turned on, now we can add a role or a service to our computer. So I'm going back to my server manager. I'm going to go to, let me just go back to dashboard really quick. So we're done with number one. So number one, done. We could check off one. We're done with configuring the local server. There's nothing else we need to do at this point, based on everything we've checked so far, right? Now we can go to step 2, add roles and features. We can click on 2 right here. It'll take us to it. I can close that. We can go to manage right here and also go to add roles and features, and that'll take us to the same place. We can also do all this from PowerShell, but I don't think we're ready for that. So, so here, I'm just going to click skip this page by default. This is just telling you what add roles and features wizard is for. If you're gone along with your uCertify, you should be familiar with that now. So we have role-based or feature-based installation. What's the difference?
things that it can do.
Yeah, so I think of role as this is my DHCP server, something I can point out it is doing this specific task. A feature, think of that as like an add-on to a role or something to help you manage a role. So you'll see when we go to install some of these, you can install the DHCP server that says, do you also want to install the features of the management tools? If you don't do the features of the management tools, you can't manage it, right? So that's the big difference between the two of those. I'm running out of water. I might need to go get some water after we do this next step. It'll be a hurry up and wait. So this first one here is going to show us a list of all the servers that our server manager can manage. So right now we only have one, we haven't added stuff, but later on, server manager, I can have DC1, DC2, DC3, our DHCP server, DNS server, all of those with dedicated roles. And I can manage them, install, or remove features or roles from right here, from one computer. I don't have to log on to that computer to do stuff to it. So,
This is the server that you're wanting to get that role.
yep, this is the one that we want to do something to. In our case, it says our computer name, who am I, on the left-hand side, DC1, and my IP address. Who am I on the network? 10.0.0.1. And then actually my operating system version over there, the 2022 data center eval. So I'm just gonna hit next because we only have one option. If we go more in depth later, you can actually modify virtual hard disks and save it to a virtual hard disk and deploy it from there. But that's more advanced right now. We're just going to do the basic administer and stuff right here, but that is an option in the future. So here we have Active Directory certificate services. That is not the one we want. A lot of people will click that one on accident. You actually have to have an Active Directory domain services first for that to do something. So we're going to do Active Directory domain services, the second checkbox. And here it's telling us you also need these tools, these features to go with it. So you have the remote server administration tools, role administrative tools, Active Directory domain services, and Active Directory LDS tools, Active Directory module for Windows PowerShell. So reason why this is important, on your Windows 10 computer, your host computer that you're sitting at, you could actually put Server Manager on a Windows 10 computer and manage this computer, but you're gonna have to go to the features and install these tools so you can actually manage that computer. If not, it won't show up. If you go up the tools, it won't show you the stuff you need to actually manage that computer. On my Windows 10 computer that I'm using for my admin computer, I typically just install all the tools at once. Just run it through it. So later, if I need it, I don't know, do I have this installed or not? Storage doesn't cost that much money anymore. I just put it all my admin computer. I focus only on working on servers and stuff. I just have everything ready to go. So on this, we're just gonna say add. It already says, hey, include management tools if applicable. I'm just gonna say add features. So you came back, all we did is go to add roles and features, and we're just doing the Active Directory domain services. From here, I can just hit next. I don't need to do any more features. Do not do more than one at a time. Like you might want to get the urge, like you're setting this up and you want to do Active Directory, domain services, DHCP, all that fun stuff. Do not check all the check boxes at one time, thinking it's going to save you time. It can do them out of order and break your system.
Like one service at one.
Yeah. So I know for everything to work right now, I need DHCP, Active Directory. If I try to do DHCP, I mean Active Directory domain services, and I try to do DHCP and DNS and all that, it might install those without connecting to Active Directory, install Active Directory, and then break those because they're not on the domain.
Because you have to have the Active Directory domain services first.
Mm-hmm.
Before you put on a WDS or a DNS.
Yep. So it's best do one at a time, restart, make a change, restart the computer, make a change. Even if it doesn't say to restart it. Because you'll find some of us will do something here. Some of your computers say, hey, you need to restart your computer. The person next to you did the exact same thing as you, and it doesn't notify them to restart their computer. Make it a habit. Every little change you make, restart the computer. This is also where doing this in Hyper-V and in a virtual machine saves you time. If I restart that server behind me and that was only doing an Active Directory on it, it'll take that server 13 minutes to restart and turn on.
Okay, with that said, when we get our domain controllers up and running, should we do a checkpoint for it before we start
When we get there, yeah. So I'm gonna just next my way through this. So always check the restart the destination server automatically if required. For this purpose, I know it's not gonna do it. It's not gonna need it. So I'm gonna go install. Now, like what she just said right now, what I'm gonna do after it does this is I am going to shut this down and I'm gonna make a checkpoint on this.
And it has to be turned off to the checkpoint.
No, but if you want to reduce the size of a checkpoint, so it's not taking a lot of storage, it is best to shut it off and then do it in a shutdown state, because it's not trying to save the state of your processor, the state of your RAM, the state that your hard drive's in at that time. So it takes up a lot less space. That's actually a certification question right there too. How do you reduce space when making checkpoints?
Okay, so make sure that machine is off.
Yep.
Okay.
And then when you turn it on, it's just like, okay, this computer was in a known good state. It was turned off. There's no hardware issues. Turn it on. It's like, yay. Because another problem you can have doing a checkpoint with it running is at that point, you also save the time state, right? And you turn it on and it says, oh, it was like 10:16, 9:24. And the next you revert it. And it's all of a sudden it's like 12:13. And it just made that big jump. It might think it has a virus. It might trigger the Windows
Yeah.
Defender.
So best practice is to turn it off.
Yep. Yvonne hates it when people do checkpoints, but
Yeah, I do checkpoints on all my Linux machines.
and he said that guy's got 47 terabytes of storage on his server. So I don't know why he's afraid of losing storage right now.
Yeah, I do checkpoints because the checkpoints don't
So we're going to shut it down. Hopefully, and make sure you're in the right one. Make sure you're not like on your host computer shutting that down. Plan and continue because we're going to do our checkpoint right here just in case we blow something away. I'm just going to name this checkpoint clean Active Directory or non-promoted. Some so I know what it is. Can I drag it? Come on, why does it always put it right there where I can't get it? There we go. So all we have to do is just right click on it. And then you have a checkpoint option right there. I'm doing it from the Hyper-V manager side because it's actually gonna give me something I can type on right here. So now I have, it says DC1, it has a time and the date that I did the checkpoint. I'm gonna click on that and go rename it. And I'm gonna just say Active Directory Domain Service, ADDS, clean, not promoted. That way I know it's there, but it hasn't been promoted yet. So it's not actually an Active Directory domain controller yet. All right, so if you guys have done your checkpoint, we can turn them back on.
I have to go add my home to it.
Well, you can catch up later. It's okay.
Because I have to do my static ID and all that.
Yep, this is the point where you watch and then you can do later. That's why you're writing notes.
Yes, sir, gotcha, boss. You see how respectful I am?
No, it was spiteful.
Oh, but why do you say that?
It's in the eye of the beholder. I relate as you being angry to me. You know what I want? I need to get some gummy candy, ginger candies. I bought apple cinnamon ginger candy on Amazon. It was like 5-pound bag of it.
Whoa,
That was bad because that was right next to my computer when I was teaching online.
whoa.
I was eating too many of those. My chair will never forgive me. All right. So when it comes back on and the server manager turns on, there should be a flag now on the top right-hand corner. It just means we have more to do. Hopefully this is still streaming and you can see me. I think I can see it on your screen over there. So. And again, usually I do this and don't let you guys do anything and make you take notes and then have you do it when I'm done. Or these videos get really long. But hey, for those who missed class, then you can be long anyways, because then they can make up the time they lost, right, guys? And then let's see, what does a rubber band sound like on the microphone? I need Korean food today. Or I'm gonna go to that Thai restaurant today.
There's some new, Korean, like, street food and Korean fried
Oh,
chicken place. When you don't know where Potbelly's used to be, in the Pluckers, that little strip area, that's where it's at. But they're a lake store, they open from 4 to 2 a.m.
Yeah, there's one by my house that they have the option to have just drumsticks. I was like, yeah, it's good. Seeing all the Korean fast food stuff on that, I wonder how come we're the ones with all the diabetes, because like their corn dogs and that. Those are
You
not,
had one of those?
yeah, they're pretty good.
They sell them in their freezer section there too, though.
Nah, I go to that little food court thing at the one in Austin. I don't remember something Mart. They're all Mart something. J Mart, H Mart, K Mart. Jeez. The one here is O Mart, right?
Yeah. Have that one Asian store.
I want to buy a rice cooker there, but I don't want to spend that much money on a rice cooker. I have issues. I don't like rice that much to fork out $400.
I know, isn't it?
Like, what makes it worth $400 for a rice cooker?
I know, like, my mom got one, and it was like $100 and something, or almost 200. And then I got mine from, like, Target or Walmart for $20.
Like, if I bought that in Japan, or if I bought that in Korea or Thailand, would it still be $300-400? Okay. Oh man. It just seems, I don't know, that thing better do more than make rice for me. I'm waiting for my night rider. Once my night rider's done, this flag will light up with, hey, more to do. The initial setup's the boring part. There we go. So see, it has a notification. I'm going to click on it. And it says promote this server to a domain controller. Don't mind if I do. So we're going to have 3 options. Let's see if you guys can figure out which one we should do. Should we add a domain controller to an existing domain, add a new domain to an existing forest, or add a new forest?
Would it be added before?
Yes, we don't have a forest, right? We got to plant our first tree. And a forest without more than one tree, right? I don't know why everything's like based on a plant, you know, root, forest. I don't know. So we'll do the 3rd option. Now, it's still Knight Rider in me. I can't click on anything. We're gonna go simple with this. We're just gonna call it domain.local for our exercise today. Once it lets me do it. Now we can use we can do .local or .lan. If you use a .com, you better own that .com. So I'm going to go to add a new forest, the 3rd option, and now it only lets me say, hey, what's the root domain? We're creating the very first one, and the root domain is the domain that's going to have the master FSMA roles. So there's 3 roles that it has, and this is going to be the master of all of them. Later on, we can delegate and change it. But right now, we're just trying to do our first deployment, and we need a minimum of 2 domain controllers. This is our first one. As I COVID all over my mic. All right, we're going to do. I did not. What the hell are you doing, computer? I clicked in there. Okay, and I was going to say domain.local. Yep. We can do .lan or .local. I'm just going to, this when I say, hey, what's your domain? Right now, your domain is going to be domain. The next page is going to be how we actually go into safe mode and try to restore domain if shit hits the fan. If stuff gets broken and we need to revert, we need to restore, if something's not working, the next page, we're going to set a password for it whenever it decides to show up for me. There we go. So at the very top here, we have something that's kind of weird. It says select functional level of the new forest and root domain. What's kind of weird here? It says forest functional level, Windows Server 2016, right? What version of server we got right here? 2022. So that's because these are actually all the same server. They just used a newer version of Windows 10 as the base operating system. In this case, I think it was what, 21H1 for this one. So if we were adding this to a system, you know, we already have other servers, they're older, they're like 2012 R2 or something. We can actually have this run at that level of functionality, like 2012 R2, 2012, 2008 R2, 2008. We can actually have these run at that level because there's features that this have that are new that those older servers do not know how to communicate. Since we're doing a brand new one, we don't have to worry about that right now. You can always raise your functionality, but you can never drop it after you've set it, okay? So we also have some other options right here. Domain DNS, domain name system server. We have to have a domain name system server or DNS. And a global catalog, what's the way to put this? That's the database that it makes for Active Directory to work and control everything for us to manage security and delegate resources for everybody. This very last one, type the directory service restore mode, DSRM password. So we have to actually log into a restore mode for the server to actually go in there and modify the Active Directory. Even though we're an admin, if we're logged into this regular, like we are now, it would not let us restore the Active Directory if you don't know this password right here. You actually have to restart this system and boot into this mode. So I'm going to just do the same password we use for everything, just for school purposes. 1, 2, 3, exclamation point. And if I didn't type them right, it's going to be mad at me, but I don't know if I typed them wrong or if it's just mad at me. I'll try it one more time. So yeah, I just had something typed wrong. Now I have the next button right there. So the next one's going to tell you where this default saves it. Right now it says it needs a DNS. This does not mean there's anything wrong. It's just saying, did you know? It says a delegation for this DNS server cannot be created. Be created because the authoritative parent zone cannot be found. Well, that's because we are going to be the authoritative parent zone. So this is just, did you know it's going to create it? So, and you can't even do anything here anyway. See, you can't click this. It doesn't do anything. So we'll just hit next. And right here is where it default saves and stores everything for you. Well, not right here. The next page is going to be that. This is the NetBIOS name, which is legacy. So you know how I can like say ping your name? Well, this is actually going to be the domain's NetBIOS name. Like I was pinning a computer, I can pin the domain too. So in this case, it's going to be domain because we said domain.local. This cannot be more than 15 characters. Now, say you have a really, really long domain name, like my nonprofit school that I was trying to get started is Blocks of Knowledge. You don't want to type that, right? So I just went in here and changed it to be okay. So like when you're trying to like join the domain and you have to type the domain / your username. I sure as heck didn't want to type Blocks of Knowledge / administrator. Hell no. So now I just have to type BOK / administrator or my username or your username. So when we're trying to log on to the domain, this is one of the ways you can log in from the login screen is it would be domain / your username. Now, the other way would be your username at the fully qualified domain name, which would be domain.local. So we'll go through that when we restart. So I'm just going to leave this as domain and hit next. Now, the one I keep on thinking I was going to is this one right here. This is actually where it saves everything on your computer, and this would be on your certification exam right here. So your database folder and your log folders are all stored in the NTDS. That's actually legacy folder names. Remember, Windows Server used to be called Windows NT, right? And you used to have to, you had the user version, like Windows 98 and all that, and then you had Windows NT 4.0, and then you also had to have server like Windows 2000 server. When Windows 2000 came out, they started basing everything on Windows 2000 because they did a complete rebuild of Windows. From that day on, everything was based on the same base operating system. So everything after that was actually compatible with network-based stuff and non-network-based stuff. So that Windows NT comes from Windows NT. The DS is obviously for domain services, right? Or domain server. What you need to know is the system volume folder is the only one that's in a different directory, right? So your database and logs are in NTDS, and your system volume is actually Windows / system vol. So that's where it's actually saving the, think of it like the operating system of the domain is in right there. Your database, where it's actually saving all your information, is in database folder, and anything that can go wrong is also in the NTDS, which is going to be logs files folder in there. So from there, I'm just going to hit next. We don't need to change anything. I just want you to know that in case you see it on a test, know the one that's not in the same folder. It makes it easier to figure out which one is. So right here, it's just going to tell us, hey, this is my verification. Is this really what you want to do? Scroll down and just double check it's what you want. Now, if you wanted to type this in PowerShell or make a script, there's a button right here that says view script. You can click on that, and this is actually the script that it is running to do everything we just told it to do. So you can actually have this saved, make a script, and if you're doing this multiple times a day on different servers, you can just, make your little subtle changes to this and run it. So you wouldn't have to answer all those questions like we just did and wait. You would just run all this in PowerShell and be good to go. So in the future, if you guys want to try that on core, once we get done with our fundamentals basic stuff, I can give you more advanced stuff if you want, okay? Right now, we're just trying to learn how to walk and drive the car, right? And stay on the map. So this is what we want. So I'm just going to hit next, and it's going to do a prereq. Sometimes it glitches right here and says, you don't have a DNS. Hopefully it doesn't do it to any of you guys, but sometimes it will. So one workaround is just to go manually install it and then run this, but really it just means something is wrong in this operating system already. Just start over. And once we're done doing this and we restart, we'll also once we know it's running properly, we'll shut it down and do another checkpoint. We'll just call this domain promoted. So that way, if something goes wrong later, we can roll back to this point and not have to do stuff all over again. This says all prerequisites checked. And remember, exclamation points don't mean bad. They just mean, did you know? So scrolling down, see how it says allow cryptography algorithms compatible with Windows NT 4.0. That's where that Windows NT comes from, is that right there. So this is everything it's doing. And pretty much if it's not red, we're good to go. So I'm just going to hit install and hold my breath and turn purple. We already did switch it up those. Let's see. Internet's running slow too, by the way. Mic check. Anyone there? All right, that's on DC2. We're almost done with this basic hands-on stuff, guys. Then we go deeper down the rabbit hole. Does that sound like Yvonne? No? You know the solution to that? You need an enema.
No, but you're right, when we're doing the command, and it goes, I want everybody to hinder themselves. Yeah, we put copies in there, or, copies.
You ate my last one.
No, I don't know, you put copies,
I have some doggy treats. Your candy's in there. I made the bad decision. I bought a big bag of Takis one day. Oh, I overdid it. My mouth was all acidy. And I wasn't smart enough to not stop eating them. Shame on me. All right. So you can see on my screen right now that now it says signing into domain. That's where we're logging into. Now it's going to try to log into the domain. If I wanted to log into the local account, which would not be the domain, I'd do period backslash. And then, you know what? On server 2019, when you make this a domain controller, it actually deletes all your local accounts. So there really is no way for me to locally log into this computer at this point. In older versions like 2016, you can still local login. You see how it doesn't change? So that's something they've changed recently. So I'm going to do administrator. Because remember, in the older ones, if you try to type administrator, it would automatically try to log in to local instead of to the domain. So if I type that password right, I should be in. So our screenshot for this one, when we come in and our server manager opens up, click on one. This is our local server. And that's your screenshot right there. It's going to prove that you are on the domain and you are on DC1, which means you are the domain too at this point.
roasting, marshmallows. I'm like, "Yeah, they're on the stage, she goes, this is my marshmallow."
Okay, so right here is gonna be your screenshot for this one. Domania 2. Because it says right here, DC1 and domain is domain.local. It means you did it right, right? And it even has our IP address now. So again, this is one of the who am I's. I am this, and this proves I am here. It doesn't prove I have a domain controller. Proof that I'm a domain controller would be coming up the tools. We go to Active Directory domain, users and computers right there, under tools. And I'll come over here, I'll drag this over. Domain. See, this one says domain controllers. There we are. DC1 is a domain controller. And that would be proof for this exercise. But use your screenshot. I'm going to try to get out of this now. I can make this full screen again right here. Exclusive. Now I can see that. Go small. So actually, let me go back into that. So if you have your screenshot or anything, or you're good to go on there, now's a good time for us to shut that down and make a second checkpoint. So I'm going to properly shut it down right here, properly. Answer its question. Yes, it's planned. Yep, there it comes. Unlike most children, this one's planned. But we're going for twins, right? This is just the one that came out a second before the other one. And then from there, I'm just going to make my checkpoint once it's done shutting down. So you can also do it right here under actions. You can click on checkpoint or control N, and I'm just going to call this. How about Domania 2, huh? Domania 2, it's done. All right. So let's see. Yeah, I'm gonna turn it on. I might put the things in a different order that's in the classroom. I'm just turning it back on and logging into it now. And after this next one, we'll probably call it done for the day. Okay. That was that. If you have that screenshot, that's the inner Domania 2. What we're probably gonna do is hello anyone there, or mic check, whatever I called it. And I'll probably put that, switch it up, those to go after that, go over the private switch after that. I think we're gonna switch it up on so that we can actually test that internal network thing. We'll use that for mic check. And then we should be at 12:30 and good to say bye-bye to everybody. So as this comes back on, there's a good chance that our network card is broken at this point.
Why do you say that?
Because we have an Active Directory domain controller on it now and it's restarted. So I'm going to log back in. Without putting the password on the login part.
I don't want to say anything.
And that's how babies are made. Yep, I got one of those out today. I can give you guys all microphones too. Put one in the middle of the classroom.
I'll sing all these chats. Sing that. 127.0.0.1.
It's not for karaoke.
That's not karaoke, it's your original song.
No, it's still karaoke. Quality. Okay, so I'm gonna put my mouse on this bottom right-hand corner here because I know my network card is gonna be there. There's a good chance it's gonna say unidentified network. That is not what it should say. It should say domain.local
Because we're in that internal virtual split.
because we are the domain controller and we're on the domain. So that's what it should say now.
Fingers crossed. Fingers
If it
crossed.
does work, I'll be happy. That means they fixed the bug, but I don't think Microsoft fixed bugs. I don't think they do.
Here we go. Moment of truth.
Unidentified network. I'll give it a second.
It's the one that's true.
Sorry, whistling right into the microphone. I bet that sounds good. At least it's not as bad as talking and thinking your microphone's on and then you look at it and you realize it's muted. And people just watching your mouse move around the whole time.
I think you did that once for like 20 minutes.
And no one was paying attention anyways because no one said anything.
No, there was a few that were sleeping, one that I was doing laundry.
Anya.
No, I think she just logged on and walked away.
Yes, that's what I was there. No, you weren't. How many times did I put her into a different class and then eventually I kicked her out of the Zoom?
Oh, God.
It was like a game. Hey, Anya, are you here? No, no. Okay, I'm gonna try 2 more times and I'm kicking you out. All right, so bottom right-hand corner, it says unidentified network. This isn't something that's gonna be in your book. So if I go to configure this local server, because everything's accessible from that page, I'm going to click on my Ethernet on my 10.0.0.1, and I'm going to show you what I'm talking about because it'll probably happen every time you restart the computer, every time. Or maybe we'll just call it on this and then we'll do the next part after. So you see how it says unidentified network? So it's so confused with all the pronouns that it just unidentifies, okay? It's like, I don't even exist. So we can right click on it or we can just left click on it and it puts, see here on the top, disable this network. If I disable this and then re-enable it, all of a sudden it should say what it's supposed to say here. Domain.local. That's what it should have been saying in the first place. If that says unidentified and you're trying to do stuff on your other computer, or you're trying to ping this one or trying to join the domain, it's not going to work. And that's going to be why. Because of that. It's somewhere, it's stuck in limbo and it doesn't know who it is. So I should be able on, yeah, tomorrow we'll pick up where we left off. We'll stop right here. Let you guys get caught up, get everything done. Answer your questions, and I'm just going to stop this here. Tomorrow we'll do mic check and 2 domains equal 1 and finish up these ones, and then we'll go into plan in a network and what does what and why it does it. When we do like WASUS, that one's going to take an entire day to do because it's going to take it forever to download and update from the Microsoft servers. I'm pretty sure Wendy has PTSD from that exercise. So,
Maybe that's what it is.
yes. What? So I'm going to properly shut mine down now because I don't have a reason to have it running. And just know when you turn it back on, if you're gonna shut yours down like I'm doing right now, that there's a good chance that's gonna be why stuff's not working. Just make it a habit. When you turn it on, make sure that that says what it should say. So I'm going to shut this down because I don't need it on right now. That might help you guys get stuff done a little bit faster.
Yeah.